Hi guys, so the Tories have been hard at work trying to convince the public that the reason they're suffering the cost of living crisis is because of something that is beyond the control of the government. They can try and help, but no matter what assistance is provided, it will be outside the scope of the people running Whitehall. They are also gaslighting the public into thinking that they are suffering due to their own bad choices or their laziness. Because if they're willing to cut back on non-essentials and perhaps work another few hours or try to find a better job, then their misery would end. Have a listen to Scott Benton gaslight his own constituents.
My constituency is among the most deprived in England, with the numbers of households in poverty, in receipt of benefits and looking for work being far higher than the national average. Indeed, 8 of the 10 most deprived neighbourhoods in the whole of England are located within Blackpool. Some commentators have spoken about us being on the cusp of a cost of living crisis, but the sad reality is that for many of my constituents, they have been struggling to manage the household budget for a very long time indeed.
Now, take a note of this. He says here many of his constituents have been struggling financially for a very long time indeed. So it's not something new, it has been something for a long time.
However, let's be clear, to frame this debate as the socialists or the Scottish nationalists have as a Tory cost of living crisis is completely ridiculous and ignorant of the facts. The unavoidable truth is that inflationary pressures created by economies emerging from the pandemic, the increases in wholesale gas prices and Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine have and will continue to cause a huge strain on household budgets for the immediate future.
Okay, but you just said that your own constituents have been struggling for years. And now you're saying that, well, it's nothing to do with Tory austerity or a Tory cost of living crisis. It's because of rising prices because of the pandemic or because of the pandemic in general. The problem with that is that if we look here at the number of people receiving 3 days worth of emergency food, you can see it's been rising since the Tories have been in power. So the cost of living crisis is not something that sprung up this year. It's been in place for the last 10 years. If we look at food banks, for example, in the area of Blackpool, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 food banks in this area here. You know, as I've said before, if a food bank exists, it means that the government has failed. His voting record. There was a chance to vote on affordable and safe housing for all, and the Tories, all of them, voted against that. When it came to free school meals during holidays, 5 Tories voted against the majority, against their own party, and Scott was not one of them. So when he says about how, you know, this is something that has existed a long time, but it's because of the pandemic, and you can't blame the Tories for this. Well, that doesn't make any sense. He's trying to confuse his own constituents. But don't worry, there's a solution. He has a solution for all of this. Let's hear what else he had to say.
It would be remiss of me not to point out that the state can only do so much. Work pays, and so getting people into employment so that they can provide for themselves and their family ultimately gives them the very best opportunity. This government has presided over a jobs miracle, and it is remarkable to think that there are more people in work now than before the pandemic, with the number of employees on payrolls at a record high. However, again, there is more we can do. Blackpool has one of the highest unemployment rates in the whole country, and there are over 2,000 people out of work in my constituency alone. And yet there are hundreds of job vacancies locally, with employers telling me that they advertise for new posts and that time and time again people either don't apply for them or on some occasions turn up at an interview and seemingly go out of their way not to get the job. I know that the DWP have taken steps to incentivise people into work, and this work needs to continue.
So, if you're suffering, you're one of the people who's relying on food banks, and, there are many people who are both working and not working who are relying on food banks. But according to Scott, if you're relying on a food bank, or if you're poor, or if you're struggling, well, you should get a job or get a better job. And, if you can't find a job at the moment, well, don't worry. The Department of Work and Pensions is going to incentivize you to get a job. Many people are working and they're still struggling to pay the bills. This idiot at the beginning said himself, this is something that has been going on for a long time. Then he criticized the opposition parties for suggesting this is a Tory austerity, a Tory problem. Well, as you can see here, the number of food bank usage has jumped while the Tories have been in power. So you can't turn around and say this is nothing to do with the Conservative Party. And you can't blame this on the pandemic, and you can't blame this on what's happening in Ukraine. You have to take responsibility for this. And the suggestion that there are lots of jobs available and people deliberately don't take them. People are being forced into doing jobs that they can't do in many cases, or that they're worse off if they do these jobs. This is a complete and utter disconnect once again by the Conservative Party. They have no understanding of what it's like to be on universal credit. They have no understanding of what it's like to struggle to pay bills or buy food to feed your family. This idiot said one thing at the beginning and then contradicted himself in the same number of minutes, in a couple of minutes. Complete and utter disconnect. And unfortunately, in his constituency, he'd be probably returned. He was one of these politicians who came in on getting Brexit done. And unfortunately, I think at the next election, Boris Johnson is going to come up with some other slogan that will return politicians like this. People who truly do not care about their constituents. Because if they did, they would vote for policies that would support their constituencies. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.